My name is Frank Lavinia. I'm a developer evangelist in the U.S. public sector team. I'm new to the team, working on month number 2 at Microsoft. So I'm going to talk to you today about a little bit of what I saw when I was in Las Vegas last week. Maybe not everything, but everything technical. That was a joke. Good. I love graphics, so I came out with this fun little graphic to bring a little bit of the Las Vegas Strip to right here to Reston. So the big takeaways from Mix, this year it was largely a Internet Explorer and HTML5 show with Silverlight 5 and Windows Phone 7. We saw they released a platform preview for Internet Explorer 10, which I'll show you a little bit of that later. Talking about having the best native experiences in HTML5 being with Internet Explorer. Silverlight 5, which was announced last December at the Silverlight Firestarter, is now available for download, and we'll take a look at some code samples with that. We'll also show off, or we'll talk about the Connect SDK, since as try as I might, I couldn't get my hands on it. It's not going to be released until later this spring, so maybe we'll have a dev dinner talking about that. But one lucky person will walk away with a Connect, so you'll have no excuse not to develop Connect-enabled applications. Entity Framework 4.1 was released. They talked about the Mango update for Windows Phone 7, as well as some tooling updates for MVC3. And there was a dev conference mentioned coming up in September. Now this developer convention was not named. They never referred to it by PDC. It just said save the date for the next big developer conference. So right now I'm calling it unofficially the Unknown Developer Conference. That's a picture of the Unknown comic, if any of you remember that. Maybe I'm just showing my age. You remember that? Okay, good. You don't remember that.
Can I ask, is it an undisclosed location? Or
no, it's actually going to be in Anaheim, California. And I think only the name is undisclosed at this point. There was also talk of the Mango update. So if you're not familiar with it, Mango is the code word for the next major update to Windows Phone 7. The first one to come out was called No-Do, which enabled copy and paste and CDMA support. There was a lot of, well, for lack of a better term, drama about rolling this update out with the different carriers. And on day 2 keynote, the head guy of the team, Joe Bellaforia, I'm probably not pronouncing that name right, came out and explained the process and what took so long. So basically, Microsoft submits the software update to the carrier. So we'll call it XT&T wireless, not to pick on anyone in particular. Some go through it faster than others. If you're a Sprint customer and you have a Windows Phone 7 device, your phone shipped with the No-Do update, largely because that had a lot to do with implementing CDMA support. At this point, everybody has gotten the No-Do update, and they learned a lot of lessons as far as how things get pushed out, what carriers take a certain amount of time. They're targeting a fall release timeframe for the Mango update. This was a really interesting talk while we're talking about the phone. If you go to the Channel 9 website or the Mix website, visit mix.com, you'll see find a link to all the sessions that were available. And one of the sessions that really caught my attention was this app design for Windows Phone 7. This slide in particular really made me realize what makes Windows Phone 7 and the Metro language different. It's infographic, not iconographic. And what that means is desktop metaphor, or if you look at the Android phone home screen or the iPhone home screen, everything's icon-based. And you really have to really make a close look at the screen to figure out what's going on. Whereas with the infographic type approach of Windows Phone 7, it's pretty easy to see that this person has 25 text messages and 4 unread emails and 4 missed calls. And I highly recommend watching this session because it really goes into a background and in-depth of of building really successful Windows Phone 7 applications that use this design language called Metro. Has everyone heard of this? Okay. So anyone not hear of this? Okay. Metro is design language that is the basis of Windows Phone 7. It's also the basis of the Zune application. And it takes its cue from highway signs, subway signs, where you can convey a lot of information in a very small space that people just kind of can glance and go. And that was really the design philosophy behind this entire, first day with the new mouth. Design philosophy behind this entirely new phone interface. And that's what, you see the commercials where the lady's like, really, you talk about glance and go. So the idea is that you just look at your phone really quick and you have an idea what's going on. So we don't get cute with like desktop backgrounds or whatever. It's just very, very informational. Highly recommend watching this session because it really talks about the philosophy and how you can build successful Windows Phone 7 apps that really integrate with the environment. Another thing that was announced was the Kinect SDK. So how many people here have not heard of the Kinect? That's great. So one of the things that they announced, it's actually the best-selling electronics device in history. So they've sold a lot more units than they anticipated. But even more exciting was the developer response to this. There was the Kinect hacking that was going on, the Open Kinect movement, which basically reverse engineered software drivers so you can plug this into your PC and write code against it. Microsoft was so moved by this that they eventually decided to create an SDK that would be officially supported and then released to the developer community. I've played around with the open source Kinect drivers and such. It's not exactly, it's good, but you really have to know C++ and you really have to really get into it. They showed a code demo of what the SDK has, and it's really, looks like a really nice product. A couple of things that they talked about, they gave a really great shout out to the developer community that put together these really cool applications and samples, all without the official SDK. So this is all the creative power that people have. In fact, this gentleman here works for Channel 9, built an easy chair that he could drive with the Kinect. So what you see here, and I have to be careful to look that way because of the lights, but what you see is he had a laptop and a Kinect right in front of it that he can actually steer that chair by moving his arms around. He also rigged it up so that there's mechanics in the chair so that he can make a gesture like he's pulling a recliner lever in a regular easy chair, and it actually reclines. If you haven't seen the Day 2 keynote and his scene on this, you have to see it. Very cool. Another thing on a more practical note was, I know this looks really goofy. So this team from the University of Constance came up with this device for visually impaired folks. So they wear this Kinect on their head, and they can actually, part of the thing of the Kinect is that it has an infrared camera as well as an RGB camera. The infrared camera detects distance. So the infrared camera can actually warn the person if they're coming up too close to a wall and either give them an audio tone or something like that. Another thing that they demoed actually was the use of QR style tags. Does everyone here know what that is? So if you go to a store or you see these barcode type of things that look like squares, those are called QR codes. If they're black and white, they're QR codes. If they have colors in them, they're Microsoft tags. And basically this software will actually read it, and it can tell the visually impaired person where they are and give them directions. Now right now it's really just a prototype of a couple of grad students, but once this device gets smaller, and it most certainly will, I mean, we can look at a really good practical application for this technology. Another interesting thing that I saw was out of the corner of my eye one day, I was talking to someone and I saw this little laptop on a room boat go by. And I thought I had seen it all at that point. The robot's roaming about the conference area floor, but it's actually avoiding obstacles by using the distance sensor in the Kinect. So think of the applications for this. Think of the applications for this for public sector. for search and rescue, for the military. A lot of interesting implications with this type of device. Not saying that everyone's going to rush out to the store and pick up a Kinect, but the fact that this technology does exist and it's cheap enough to be a toy, essentially. For $150, you get this type of device that opens up this new world of natural user interface, or what some people call NUI. Another thing that they showed, Scott Guthrie and Laura Foy kind of embarrassing themselves in front of the 4,000 or 5,000 of their closest friends in a video game that was developed by a design company, where you have to, there are two players, and you have to match the silhouette of the cutout that you have. Otherwise, you knock down this, you hit the wall, and it beeps at you. It's silly, but it's a fun party game. But the interesting thing here, this isn't on the Xbox. This is actually some code that somebody wrote for Windows. So, as many of you know, I'm a Silverlight guy. I wrote a Silverlight book, founded the Silverlight group. I'm going to address, everyone's like, what is this slide about? I'm going to talk about the gorilla in the room. And the gorilla in the room is HTML5 versus Silverlight 5. Right? I mean, that was the thing that everybody was talking about. Ever since last year's PDC, when there really wasn't much of a mention of Silverlight. That led people to make all sorts of wrong conclusions about the future of the technology. In fact, we saw a lot of great demos that show off the power of Internet Explorer 9 and its tight integration with the graphics cards, the CPU, GPUs, and what type of experiences you can build without plugins. HTML5, if you've not heard of it, is basically a new specification, the first one since 1999, to come out from the W3C. There's a lot of story and a lot of history behind it. But the short of it is that HTML5 stands to be kind of a resetting of expectations for web development. These expectations are really more of a media-rich environment, whereas HTML was originally conceived as a document kind of structured. So HTML5 people tend to be very optimistic, and this slide kind of demonstrates how HTML5 developers see HTML5, where they think everything will be perfect, everything will be unicorns and rainbows. That's not entirely true. I think, though, that while the HTML5 crowd is overly optimistic, I think the Silverlight crowd is also overly pessimistic. Up until Mix, I kind of counted myself in this, but once I saw what HTML5 can do and what the bigger picture was, I believe in it now. I don't believe in the unicorns and the rainbows, but I do believe it has a place in the RIA spectrum. And when I say RIA, I mean rich internet applications. The trade press, they love a good fight. They played this up intensely, particularly after the PDC. And there was no exception reading some of the articles from the trade press during Mix. And every nuance, every word was kind of slanted to create controversy. At least that's what it read like to me. But my impression, my stance is choice is good. I went to the supermarket. These are all the different types of diet soda you can have. Well, at least one brand of it. Choice is good. And I think that's really what this whole HTML5 and Silverlight 5 story is really about. For certain situations, Silverlight is going to be the right path. For certain situations, HTML5 is going to be the right path. In some cases, such as the Blue Angel site that they demoed during the second day keynote, they use both. I don't think it's an either-or type of proposition. The real takeaway from this is we're building tools, and a developer community should choose what they want to build with to their needs. I think that's reasonable. In fact, I have a Coke Zero, Cherry Coke Zero, and a Dr. Pepper. So I'm going to drink both of these during the course of my presentation. So I'll be wired, but I have a choice of using those two tools. Bit of a stretch on the analogy, but I did feel really weird taking this picture in the supermarket.